Hello and welcome to Buying and Beyond, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of retail buying. We're Kate and Linz, and together we have over 30 years experience in retail.
We'll be talking all things retail buying and beyond, so grab your drink of choice and come and have a giggle with us.
Hello, it's that time of the week again.
Hi.
So welcome to episode 8 of season 2. So how's your week been so far?
Well, it's been quite a bit of a whirlwind of a week, to be honest with you. I feel like most weeks at the moment are just blurring into the next one, and then we're all just like living for some sort of potential window of downtime in summer, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. It's a bit like Christmas, isn't it? When you think that you're going to have that free time between Christmas and New Year, but actually it fills up and it's always like, oh, I could do all my admin, or I could get all of my filing done. Filing.
If the ages are called, what they're filing back.
In what age am I living in? So in our last season, we talked about becoming a manager and about setting and checking in on objectives. But really, whose responsibility is it to drive your development? So
Interesting.
I'd say it's yours. I think like many things in life, you can't just rely on others to do the legwork, and you'll find you'll progress so much quicker if you're in the driving force. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do think there's a bit of a split. So it might be like 70-30, or depending on what stage of your career you're at, you need a hell of a lot more guidance, obviously, at the beginning. And sometimes at the beginning, you don't really know what driving your development means. So that's when it's really important that you have quite a good manager. But I think when you get further up the line and your manager is very, very senior, then you are very responsible for your own
Yeah, maybe
development.
they've got less time to invest in you, whereas actually when you're kind of starting out, actually you're in like a smaller team, and like actually, I think we've said before, but you can really build that bond within your team. But I guess agree or disagree with whether or not you should be responsible, like we should still be asking the questions like, why?
Yeah.
Why would you need to drive your own development? And not just that, but how? And how are you going to do it? So we've sort of identified, I guess, a couple of reasons why, depending on kind of what point you are. You may not have somebody that you can rely on, but how are you going to do it? Because it can be so hard to drive your own development when you feel completely bogged down with BAU.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's just an extra task.
It feels like it, doesn't it? And it feels like it's something you have on your list to do, but it just drops down the priority list. Like, I always remember there being so many courses and workshops being like emailed around by HR, and I would see them and I'd think, great, I'm going to go to that. And I would put it in my calendar. And then I'd always find like I was stuck in trade or a supplier meeting or a fit session, and they always come first in your priority list.
So how do you fit it in?
I mean, I think if you're a line manager, then you should be making it mandatory for your teams to have a set amount of time a week for training. I think that's easier said than done, definitely, in buying. But I think you see that in other departments. Like
Marketing.
Yeah, and other industries, like, I don't know, like product
The financial
managers
industry.
or finances or IT. Like, they have scheduled time for courses to like learn about new programs or technology advances, or even like design teams. Like, they have workshops to draw flowers, or an afternoon team building to kind of like reignite their creativity. I mean, it's not quite the same, but
I suppose they just see the investment return on that, don't they? A lot clearer in a lot of other industries, whereas can be a bit blurred in buying because there's so many different types of buying.
Maybe.
So
it could be that.
Yeah,
I mean, I definitely remember having, when I worked with a team of supply chain, and they would have days out, like, dedicated to completing their SIPS qualifications, But I guess that was partly because often they're paid for.
Yeah.
So the company's invested in those, so therefore it's in their interest to make sure that you have a day out to do it. But if they can manage their workload around it, and supply chain are
Why can't we?
paramount to get the product
Yeah.
in from A to B, then why can't buying?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. A few months ago I was out with a colleague and we were doing some store visits, and they turned to me and said, "Don't you feel guilty about being out right now?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Well, we've got so much going on. Like it kind of feels like we shouldn't be out the office."
A DOS day.
Yeah. I'm like, no, this is part of your job. You need to be
Yeah.
into the stores. You need to be talking to the people on the shop floor. This is really fundamentally important. Why do you see this as not a DOS day, but why do you see this as a part of your role that's a luxury?
Yeah.
It's not, and it's kind of like the same thing. Same principle applies.
Yeah, because it feeds it, doesn't it? It feeds your knowledge. It feeds your direction. And if you don't get out to stores, you'll become completely stale.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise, if you're not getting the training, then how can really we get the best out of you?
Yeah,
There's a lot to be said with learning on the job. Let's face it. But definitely having sort of like training around that is really like supportive, isn't it?
I suppose that still dances around the issue of you've got all these things to do that are really important and they come first. It still dances around the issue of how to be able to fit that training in, doesn't it?
It's funny because as buyers, we've talked about it before, but you live and breathe and die by a critical path. Like, just build time in for it.
Yeah.
But we don't, do we?
No.
You just stick to a critical path. But if you had a critical path that allowed an extra week on product development because you know that you're going to take a couple of days out of that to do some workshops, it's funny, isn't it? But I have to say, if there's no time at work, we are lucky now to be in a time where information is at your fingertips.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much great content on podcasts like this.
Yeah.
Or audiobooks, and they are super easy to listen to on the go, like whether it's on your commute or on your way to the gym.
Or while you're cleaning the house. I often listen to a podcast while I'm cleaning the house because it's such a dull task.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it makes it more interesting.
Definitely. I mean, there's just like a few people that I love listening to at the moment. Obviously, Diary of a CEO, which is quite controversial. Some people like him, some people don't.
I think sometimes it can depend which episode you're listening to.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but he is Marmite.
Yeah, he is.
He does.
That's a really good way to describe it.
He has some great guests on. Although it's interesting, I was watching just a clip of something the other day. I don't know if you saw it, but you know how he interviewed Molly May and there was one bit that just went viral and she almost got cancelled. And then apparently, because it kind of is a bit of an all warts and all kind of thing, you go on and people just open up.
Yeah.
He apparently had quite a lot of guests cancel.
Oh, really? Because of that?
Because of that. Because this one bit that she said got taken and put out of context.
You'd think that she'd be able to listen to it. Or maybe she did and she didn't think it was going to go so viral.
I think it was the way that it had been cropped, cut, and distributed when it was part of a bigger conversation. And we all know things like that. You can take any kind of bit of information. If you just take it out of context, it can...
Makes for a good news story.
Yeah, and
That's what it is.
And it can spiral.
But yeah, no, I think you're right. He has some really brilliant guests. And I actually quite like the structure of his podcasts because I do feel like he's quite a good interviewer,
he asks the right questions.
He asks the right questions, but he also then like relates it back to his own personal situation or experience and says it from how maybe that topic has helped him and
almost interpret.
And he's always got an example or like or if he doesn't, he'll be quite open to being like, oh my gosh, that's something new. I didn't know that. Da, 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 da. Obviously, we don't know how he works in his day to day and how he works with like the companies that he invests in with Dragon's Den. But there's definitely like been so much stuff. Oh, walking the dog. I always listen to that podcast. It's just
I find.
Sorry, jump off at a different tangent there.
No, but I think both of those activities, walking the dog and cleaning, are probably good ones for it. Maybe it's because I don't have a dog and I don't do enough cleaning. But I find
you can't relate.
I find his podcast too long.
Right.
because
okay.
they are often
They are
quite
like an hour and a half.
they are time heavy.
Yeah.
And I
But
am
he
more
does
of a,
break them down on the notes. If you go into the podcast notes, it says like section by section.
oh, so maybe I should
what
do
is
that
talked
then.
about, which I actually think when you listen to some of the, again, I'm going from tangent here, if you listen to some of the more like relationship type ones that he does, some of the topics can be quite triggering for people, so it's quite
heavy.
nice that you know what content is. So if there's something in there that you're like, actually that's going to send me off into a bit of a downward spiral, I'm not going to listen to that section. That's what's quite good about that.
Pause
so,
it.
Yeah.
Skip on.
So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good because I'm all about like small, digestible.
Yeah,
bits of
definitely. Another good one at the moment that I'm just getting into is a lady called Mel Robbins.
Oh, I don't know her.
And so I recently joined a life coaching circle.
Oh, I do know that.
Yeah, I talk about it a lot, don't I?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this is new news to me.
Big
Not.
advocate over here.
Yeah. And it's a really brilliant program. We all meet. There's about 12 really inspiring women. We all meet once a month and sit in a circle, and it's run by this fantastic life coach. Which obviously I think we're gonna talk a lot more about life coaching in the next few seasons. It probably will be talked about a lot.
Well, you live and breathe it, I think it will come up at any opportunity.
Definitely. And I can't advocate enough for life coaching. I think it's absolutely amazing, and there's so many different types of life coaching as well. So you can actually reach out to retailing specific life coaches. So if they have been in retail and they've gone on to do this. But yeah, so we all meet, and there's a certain subject every week, and we talk about what our goals are going to be for the next month. But she is a really big advocate for a lady called Mel Robbins. And she's a life coach, American life coach, and her podcast is brilliant. I was listening to one on the train the other day.
Is it super American?
It is quite American, yeah, because I know how some people do struggle with. Can I say that?
No, I get that. Like there's an element of like uplifting that you want. It's a bit like going total tangent. It's a bit like when you go to like a spin class. Mm-hmm. You know, like Soul Cycle, and it's just like
too much.
It's very like
I love it.
Some people find it super motivating, and other people are like, piss off.
Yeah.
I have to say, I was more of the like, shut up, I'm going at my own pace, thank you very much, and I don't need you to tell me. Like, it's a bit like going to another one. What are they, like British military fitness?
Oh god,
like, drop and give me 10. No, I actually don't want to drop and give you 10. Thank you. Like, that's not the way to motivate me.
Oh
but I do love a spin class, but like sounds so British. I like a British version, like Boom Cycle or Cycle.
So you don't like the DJ
no,
going off on one?
No, so they are DJs.
Oh, okay.
And it's the same vibe.
I go for the music.
Soul Cycle. I'm there for the music, and I'm there for a bit of encouragement.
Yeah.
But it's not the really intense looking inside yourself.
Yeah.
Digging within and it's not overkill.
Yeah.
But it's encouraging.
Yeah.
That's more my kind of vibe. Anyway, back to Mel Robbins.
But yeah, she's brilliant. She's just so down to earth as well. Like she's I've only listened to a few. This is quite new. She's new into my life, to be honest. Mm-hmm. But you can. I think a lot of the life coaches, they're all quite like they're just really, really excited about life. Like I know that's so stupid. They're a life coach.
They're spreading their positivity through the.
But it's not necessarily just about positivity, because, like you say, that can be a bit like too much for some people. It's more just like really, really, really embracing the subject they're talking about, and really just like being enthusiastic about it, getting behind it, and. Yeah, she's got some really, really good guests on. I think I was listening to one about the true happiness of life, which sounds a bit woo-woo, and then when you listen to it, it's not groundbreaking subjects. It's like quite obvious things, but just said in a way that really kind of like resonates with lots of people in different scenarios in their lives. So she's fantastic. So I'll continue talking about her probably throughout
Great.
many of these episodes.
Mel's going to feature a lot.
Yes, and then my last one is just my top 3
Yeah.
at the moment. Jay Shetty on Purpose.
Oh, yeah.
Really like him. Read quite a lot of his books as well. Like really great books. But yeah, he's brilliant. He's an interesting one, isn't he? Because he's done really, really well with spreading mindfulness and spreading his journey and his words of wisdom.
Well, that's the thing. I think he comes across really wise, like, but in a really like, well, yeah, obviously, like it just makes sense. It's not like it doesn't challenge your brain to try and work out what he's saying. It makes complete sense, and you're a bit like, why didn't I think of that? But he puts it really articulately, I think.
Definitely. And he's had some really great guests. He often has athletes. And I really, again, going down another rabbit hole here, I really have enjoyed a lot of, there's been a lot of documentaries and like Netflix series about a lot of like different sports and like the psychology behind the strategy in sports and athletes.
Endurance.
And there's so much you can take from that to bring into retail and buying, and because it is it's all quite similar, and so I felt like I think I listened to Jay Shetty's interview with what's his surname? I can't remember. You know the tennis player Nick.
I'm not that up to speed.
I can't remember his surname. It's he's quite bolshy. He really, really notoriously like yells on the court and like really quite like not Wimbledon, material type thing. But his interview with him was really interesting because he comes across like a bit of an arsehole basically, but he's really not. Like there's a really, really deep story behind like his journey into tennis and stuff like that, and like how he's had to deal with a lot of like trauma, maybe not trauma, but just situations in his life. And you can see why he's then like he is. But again, there's just like loads in that. Like there's loads of, like said, to deal with high pressure situations, stress, like everything's really relatable.
Yeah, how does he manage all of that?
So yeah.
There's some great
You just said podcasts and I'm like,
often one. I love a podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that M&S have joined with Hello Magazine and they have got a new podcast. I think it launched on International Women's Day.
Oh, yes, I have heard about this.
Which I love.
Oh, I haven't started listening to... Oh, this is going to go on my list.
Write it down. So it's called the Shake the Table podcast. So it's been designed as like a roadmap. So it's got like actions, tips and authentic experiences on how to be a successful female leader today.
Oh, amazing.
So I love to see how much retailers like M&S have been supporting the progression of women in the workplace.
110%.
Now, I, as you know, because I wax lyrical, I admire Kate Bickerstaff so much.
Mm-hmm.
I think that she has done so much for M&S.
Yeah, definitely.
And I was really, really sad when I heard that she was leaving. Yeah. But I think that hopefully it means that she'll just spread that positive impact because she's heading on to, is it B&Q and Kingfisher?
Yeah.
Yeah. So fingers crossed, we'll continue to hear about like female empowerment and like levelling the playing fields.
Maybe we could get her on the podcast.
That would
Wouldn't
amazing,
that be brilliant?
Wouldn't it?
Kate,
I mean,
please,
I would definitely
be listening.
I would have a complete like fangirl moment. But I think she's fantastic, and I just think that's a really good podcast. To really sort of talk about successful female business leaders, like, and about what it takes to thrive in the modern workplace for us, because like there are so many women in retail, but yet we still live in a man's world.
Yeah.
So I really love that they've got that, and yeah, I think they were saying their purpose is like to share how women can like not only like lead but also bring other women with them.
Amazing.
Because that can be the worst kind of woman. Sorry, I am a big female supporter.
100%.
Right? I'm actually quite a girl's girl. But there is nothing worse, and I don't want to bring anyone down, but there is nothing worse than a female leader that acts alpha.
Yeah, 100%. Because it's just them promoting that is the way to act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about inspiring inclusion or like fostering like that allyship or like,
love these expressions.
Thank you, just off the top of my tongue. Redefining,
Off
like...
the top of my tongue.
top of my tongue? Tip of my tongue. But yeah, also like redefining like what power and purpose look like in the workplace. Like, we don't have to act like a man to succeed. And I think we should just be supporting women.
Yeah.
Not leaving men out, but
No,
just
and
championing
or just
each
supporting
other.
everybody, you know, in a way. Yeah, it's not so bullshit and bullying.
Yeah, and I think I've definitely found that I've had some really great male bosses that have surprised
me too.
with how supportive they've been. And then I've been really surprised at sort of an expectancy that a female boss that I've had would support me and treat me as I would treat them.
Yeah.
Or, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we had talked about management in a previous episode, haven't we? But the good managers that really support you and like push you to progress, like they are the best types.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do if you don't have a great manager?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I have been in that situation, it's really hard, isn't it? Because you don't want to go over their heads and you don't want to go and make them feel like they're hearing that you're talking to someone else, because that just aggravates the situation. But I think when I've been in that situation, I have gone and maybe found another manager and just had a coffee with them and approached it in a way where it's like, oh, I just love to hear your advice on something, and not because they might be friends with your boss.
Go and hang out at the tea point for a bit.
Hanging out the tea points, but
make
get all the
your tea
the
really
the coffee room is just where it's
and while it's brewing, you don't know who might come in, and then you can just start chatting to them really casually, couldn't you? Like,
but also just going for coffees with people that are a bit more senior than you is a great idea anyway. And don't be afraid to ask them. If someone's going to come back to you and go, why do you want to go for a coffee with me? This is really odd. Fuck them.
Then you don't want to go for a coffee with them.
Yeah, like,
that's a sign.
Absolutely. Like, there's absolutely no way if someone reached out to me in a junior position and said, Lindsay, would you mind taking half an hour out of your day, I'd just like to chat to you about something, I'm more than happy
to do it. But it is about having that confidence to do it. My husband's forever telling me to like, just go have a coffee with someone. Just ask them they want a coffee. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can. It's like, it's a coffee. What are you struggling with?
Yeah, definitely. I think also being quite reliant on your HR department. Don't think we've really talked that much about HR in any of our episodes, to be honest with you. But I think that they have a responsibility to help and guide you with these kind of awkward conversations. So not befriending, but, really kind of have, like, creating an alloy
wheels. I mean, they really do spruce up your car.
Creating an ally with someone in HR is definitely something that I have benefited from, because they don't necessarily know what the answer is, but they'll help you to guide a conversation so that you do
They've got lots of tools, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. And, everything that you say to them is confidential. Like, they can't then go and say that to your manager, and make the situation worse. So don't be afraid to, like, use your HR department
and give you that confidence. I do like what you were saying though about finding someone else, like another manager or someone that you admire, like across the buying floor, that you're like, oh wow, like they really know what they're doing. Like, I'm maybe a little intimidated, but really, really in awe of like how fabulous they are. Like
how they present to a room or something like that. I'm always in awe of people that can do that really well.
If you, as you say, have the confidence, go for it, or speak to your HR department about, ways to build that confidence, and go and have that chat. And you can just talk about just like what you enjoy in and out of work. Like, you can just kind of make it really quite broad, can't you? Get to know them on a personal level.
Yeah, definitely. It's about finding that mentor, isn't it, as well? And I think, sorry to keep going back to it, but actually, I'm not sorry. Life coaching is a really good way of doing that. Like, if you don't have a good boss, or you don't have any of these people in your office, you don't have a very strong HR department, then reach out for it externally. It's a big wide world out there. There's so many people on LinkedIn.
Well, and I think exactly as we said, like in terms of having so much like information at your fingertips as well, like we're not hidden anymore. Everybody's faces are kind of out there. You can find people, like find who's working where, or you can find people are more about putting themselves out there and telling you about what they're doing. And then if you ask them questions about their career and or ask them for some advice or something, like more often than not they'll be flattered, and like you say, they'll give you the time, like you've said you would, and then you might find out you've got more common than you realise. You could gain a nugget or two of knowledge.
Definitely.
And then also, like, you'll have, like, as you say, like an ally, like it's someone else in the business and someone else who's got your back and will support you. And it's interesting you mentioned the word mentoring. Like, I don't think there's enough of that, and I don't know if that's because not enough people ask for it, or not enough people are willing to, or not enough people put themselves out there to do it or offer their services up. But you're definitely hearing that word a lot more, and hearing of a lot more people offering their services up. So I think if you ever hear or ever see on LinkedIn or Instagram or anything like that, anything about someone offering mentoring, like, grab it.
100%.
In fact, my friend, we've talked about her before, who went on that creme de la creme programme at Harrods, she had the buying director as her mentor.
Oh, wow.
Swoon. Like, I mean, the buying director was like this formidable woman who was just like wore like really
an
high
Winter,
heels and like, had her hair all done and stuff and always looked like on point. So it was a bit like, oh my God. Like,
she sounded fierce.
But wow, like that has supercharged her career.
Given her that internal confidence at such a young stage of her career.
I mean, it's hard to say, isn't it? Like, she's gone on to do some amazing things, and like, was it because of the mentorship, or like, did she drive her own development?
But, bit of both.
Yeah, the mentorship gave her the confidence maybe to do it.
Definitely.
But anyway, let's move on. So, how else do we think that you can drive your personal development? I mean, I found conversations with my peers super helpful. Like,
absolutely.
In particular, you.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we started this in the first place.
Exactly. As we said at the very, very beginning, like, part of our reason for starting this was like to encourage that sharing of information and like debating a problem. We love a debate.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We were just saying this morning, actually, weren't we, that like we've just always had that relationship where you can just be really like
cutthroat. I'm cutthroat Kate, honestly. Some of the conversations we've had, I've rang her up for some support and I've kind of left feeling like, oh, maybe I've thought about this all the wrong way. She can be quite, but it's been good. It's like,
it's about supporting, but also challenging that way of thinking sometimes, isn't it? So that's a lot.
There's a lot.
I think we've reiterated why it's so important to find that trauma friend. The one person or group of people that you can talk about anything with, about how you kind of like need to be a little bit vulnerable, but you feel comfortable sharing your strengths and weaknesses with. The one that will help support and challenge you. And if you're lucky enough, you can have multiple people that you can build those relationships with. But yeah, so should we have some retail therapy?
I think it's time. Right, what have we got here today, Kate? Okay, oh, this is an interesting one. Oh, this is quite controversial. Well, not controversial, but quite bullshit. Bullshit? No.
I love a bit of bullshit.
I don't know.
I love a bit of bullshit.
Right. Just when I thought we were entering into a new world of thinking in retail, I found myself catapulted back to the 80s. A new CEO had come into a company that I'd been working at, and within 9 months, he'd brought in 5 new, inverted commas, fresh faces and high caliber of talent. It just so happened that they were all male. Discussions around the office often coined the phrase male, pale and stale. Why do these old-time CEOs think that if a company is struggling, the only way to make money is to bring people in that are regurgitating old ideas, and again in inverted commas, that used to sell well for us here? Enter the name often of a retailer that's either on its way out or no longer exists. Oh, this is harsh. Sorry, this is more of an offload than a funny, light-hearted retail therapy story, but why can't retailers see that the long game and fresh, new, sustainable, innovative ideas is where consumer behaviour is headed?
Oh my God, that's brilliant.
I know.
I also love the lots of inverted commas.
I know, gosh.
And the male, pale, stale.
Yeah.
It just rolls off the tongue so easily, doesn't it?
But you just wouldn't think that would be a thing anymore.
Oh, it shouldn't be, should it?
It really shouldn't. I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's such a hard balance, isn't it? Like, you totally understand that, like, if a business is on the floor, you need to just make some money. And, like, people coming in with experience of how to do that with old ideas might be a way of them using it as a stepping stone to then bring in the new, sustainable, fresh thinking, innovative ideas. Totally get that. But by the sounds of things, this person hasn't been given that, like, clear roadmap. Like, it just feels like that is all they're doing, and they're not actually thinking about getting to that as an end goal.
Yeah.
It's all about communication, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're kind of resting on their laurels, like, we did it once, so it's going to work again.
Yeah.
Might not, but also there is, exactly as you say, like that balance almost of, like, you've had bestsellers and bestsellers for a reason, and sometimes bestsellers are just core. They run season in, season out, and if you haven't got that, let's get that in, because that is a surefire winner. But also you need to move on with the times. We also know when a bestseller's becoming stale, and then you've got to change your tact. You've got to come up with something new. And I think customers these days, although we like the comfort of something that is a bestseller and an idea that will just run and run and run, people are wanting new things, and things are moving faster than ever. Yeah,
and there are new platforms to buy impulse product.
The customer expectations have leveled up.
They have. So it might have been like back in their day that product sold really well, but actually now Amazon is doing that, like, half the price. You can get it to you within 3 hours. You know, it's I do see the frustration. I see the frustration on both sides, but it's all about being clear with your long-term strategy and your long-term, like, direction for a business.
Yeah, agreed. Right, let's get back to it.
Let's. We would really encourage you to seek the following to help support driving your own development. So, number 1, seek out that support, whether that's a friend, co-worker, manager, or someone in the workplace that you really respect. Go for a coffee, have an informal chat, and no doubt it will open up new avenues and opportunities. If we're honest, there's a great need and not enough of mentoring in retail. But if we all start seeking it out, it will drive the change we need. And number 2, look externally for extra support to seek out podcasts, audiobooks, online courses, etc. that will give you the information in bite-sized chunks that you can listen to whilst you're on the go about your busy life, cooking dinner, or on the way to work, the gym, a friend's house, etc. It's definitely worth the investment. Look into life coaching. It's definitely a tool to use as a guide, as a way to find out what your career path is. Nobody really knows what their career path is until they, really start to think about what that journey is ahead of them. And life coaching is just a really good way to guide you into that.
So join us next week for another passionate topic of ours, sustainability.
If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, please, please, please like and subscribe and leave a review.
And if you already have, Thank you, thank you, thank you. We all need a bit of retail therapy, and this is the perfect time for you to offload about that super cringeworthy story. We would love to hear from you all, your funny stories and experiences, or even any dilemmas. And maybe we can help, or at least find someone who can. And don't worry, we will keep these anonymous and remove any names and brands.
We would also love to hear from you on any topics you would like us to talk about. Please send all of these into buyingandbeyond@gmail.com or drop us a DM via our Instagram page @buyingandbeyond. Kate, are you a drama queen?
No,
Drama just makes things interesting.
that's true.
All these thoughts and opinions are our own and based on our own experiences working for a wide variety of retailers. These are all in the hope to entertain and educate, and not to reflect negatively on any place we currently or have previously worked.